So I'm guessing you like vampires. Otherwise you wouldn't be on my channel. Or maybe you don't. Maybe horror is just your general genre, but it all fits into that gory frame of entertainment. And maybe you're like me, someone who appreciates well-researched videos on YouTube, and that's what I do here. It's just one guy at a computer doing all the research, all the scripting, all the editing that takes countless hours, and I want to give you something worth watching. And speaking of watching, you've most likely found yourself watching a vampire movie or TV series over the course of your life, and if you are like me, there's a certain kind of portrayal that you like vampire stories to display. Whether it's the romantic vampire with a painful backstory, or the more science-based, factual representation of vampires, where we get to the root of the species' existence. Either way, there's something for everyone in the vampire world, which is why it's such a popular extension of the horror gothic category. And with that being said, a heavily common trait associated with vampirism is immortality. So I sat there and I thought, well, the most powerful vampire lists have been absolutely rinsed dry on YouTube. Everything I see is the most powerful vampire this and the most strongest vampire that. But in all franchises, which is books, TV shows, movies, and even games, could I compile a list of the oldest vampires to ever exist? Vampires who truly stood the test of time. Ask yourself a question. Can you name 10 powerful vampires off the top of your head? You probably could, really quickly. But how fast can you name the oldest? Vampires who truly represented the word immortality. It might take you a little bit longer, but I'm sure you'd still get there. But anyway, I'm inviting you to stay with me and allow me to take you through a well thought out, well researched list of the oldest vampires to ever exist in the combined history of every single franchise. As I said, I'm making it a list so we can still adhere to the list lovers on YouTube. You might want to stick around for top spot. It certainly wasn't one I expected. At number 10, I've decided to go with Marcus Corvinus, the first vampire to ever exist in the Underworld franchise. Marcus is a little different to every other vampire placed on this list because he's the only one who was originally born with the immortality gene, something he inherited from his father Alexander Corvinus, the first ever immortal. Marcus's genetics were also science-based and resulted from the evolution of the human species. After he was bitten by a bat, his own DNA was mutated and the outcome was the first ever vampire. Marcus was responsible for the creation of probably what many of us would consider the face of the franchise, Victor. Yeah, I know Selene is the frontrunner for the Underworld franchise, but Victor is definitely up there too, with the most recognizable. Marcus also turned Amelia into a vampire, and together, the three ruled as the Vampire Elders. Marcus was over 1500 years old by the time he was killed by Selene in the Underworld Evolution movie. But despite his age, he didn't technically live 1500 years straight, as he slept for 200 years on rotation, as a result of an agreement between all three Vampire Elders known as the Chain. And if you want to know more about the Chain and the Vampire Elders, then you can check out my video on that topic. So for those of you who are True Blood fans, then you might be happy to see Russell Edgington coming in here at number 9. The Vampire King of Mississippi is one of the greatest antagonists of the entire series, and someone who uses his power for self-purpose and isn't really shy of showing that. In True Blood, and also with most vampire franchises, the older a vampire is, the stronger they become, but in True Blood, they really emphasize on that. There's not much one can do to stop an ancient, unless you can get close enough to them, but as the series has shown, that is not particularly easy to do. Russell has used his abilities to influence history over the centuries and, in recent years, enjoys rather a comfortable life. He's more of a person you don't cross or piss off, as it normally takes him being properly challenged in order to bring out his ruthless side. Russell is just over 2,800 years old, making him one of the earliest vampires to ever exist, and also the oldest. 2,800 years makes him one pretty strong-ass vampire. True Blood has seen its day come and go. Although being a pretty decent show, it also comes across as pretty simplistic vampire porn. But if you want to know more about the vampires from this franchise, you can check out the video I made about True Blood on my channel. Moving on to number 8, we're looking at a franchise that is one of my all-time favourites, and unfortunately this list is based on facts, not preference. Otherwise, I'd never have the Strain series so low on any list. The vampires from the Strain are like nothing I've seen in any other franchise, except the Reapers from Blade, because that's actually who they're based on, as they have the same creator in Guillermo del Toro. The progenitors of the vampire race in the Strain are called the Ancients, a collection of 7 original vampires who were once the body parts of the Archangel Ozriel after his fall to Earth. It sounds weird, but the story explains itself pretty well. The Ancients are between 3,000 and 4,000 years old and worked collectively to ensure that the worm, which is basically the strain of vampirism, is given to only the worthy, in addition to shaping the world from the shadows. One of the Ancients, known as the Master, broke away from the collective and went rogue, looking to achieve total global dominance. Hence the story of the Strain begins. Great books, great show, severely underrated. I've also got some videos on the Strain that you can check out on the channel too, if you want to know more. It's a trip to the Blade franchise for the next oldest vampire in existence, as Drake, aka Dracula, or at least the Blade franchise's take on Dracula, comes in at number 7. Now, according to the original source point for Dracula, Bram Stoker, the count was believed to be somewhere in between 500 to 1,000 years old, but if we go with Drake's lifespan, he's over 5,000 years old, and said to be around since before the dawn of man began. He comes from a time where he was essentially a god. Fed up with how the world was changing so rapidly before his eyes, he enters into a deep slumber, with no intention to ever wake from it. That was until he was found by Danica Talos and her team. The intent behind waking Drake was so he could destroy Blade and finally allow vampires to thrive once again. It's kinda weird how Blade was literally keeping an extremely powerful race with an overwhelming numerical advantage over him at bay. So Drake wants to restore the world to a time where vampires were gods, so he takes on the challenge. In his death, he deems Blade a worthy opponent and even shapeshifts into the vampire hunter himself to put the police off catching Blade. Now, I've more information on the vampires from Blade on my channel also, so you can check out those videos if you like. Heading over to my favourite vampire franchise of all time for number 6, and that is of course the Vampire Chronicles. Maharet and Mekare, the red-haired witch twins who were then turned into vampires. There isn't much to go for Mekare's story. Her history, it's basically non-existent. After she and Maharet were separated by Akasha, she basically lived in the shadows of South America, but upon her return to challenge Akasha, she did take the sacred core within herself in order to ensure the vampire race survived after Akasha's death. As for Maharet, she played a more consistent role in terms of trying to keep the prosperity of the vampire race as safe as possible. She was ever present over the millennia and stood against Akasha's plan to eradicate the world of men and bring upon a global vampire dominance. The sisters are over 6,000 years old and were actually the 4th and 5th vampires ever created. I'm currently in the middle of making a video on the entire lives of the twins, so make sure to look out for it when it drops. We're sticking with the Vampire Chronicles for our next vampire, coming in at number 5, which is of course the Queen of the Damned herself, the Great Mother Akasha, the first ever vampire to exist in Anne Rice's fictional world. Akasha was once the Queen of Kemet and ruled alongside her husband, King Enkil. That was until Akasha's soul merged with the spirit of Amel as she was dying and creating the first ever vampire in the process. She then turned Enkil into the first vampire fledgling, and together they drank the land dry. They drank until they lost the will to drink and became marble-esque statues as a result of their protest in continuing to exist as the beings they were. Akasha rose in the 1980s with a new goal, a new king in Lestat, and a new lease on her life, something she had not experienced in thousands of years. Being the first vampire makes her the oldest at over 6,000 years old. I've got a full detailed video on the life of Akasha that you can check out on my channel, or you can even click the card here. Okay guys, I'm not gonna lie when I say that I completely forgot about the Turok-Han from Buffy the Vampire Slayer for our number 4 slot in this video. It's been that long since I watched the show, probably a couple of years now, that these ugly looking chucks slipped under the radar. So the Turok-Han were supposedly the predecessor to the modern day vampires we see in Buffy. They were faster, stronger and more agile and resilient. I remember they used to call them the Uber Vamps in the show. The Turok-Han were believed to be over 10,000 years old. Now these guys could also withstand sunlight for a brief period of time, but in reality, it's a good thing this list is ranked by age and not intelligence, because these guys were pretty dumb. They were mostly bestial and feral, the complete opposite of the charming or charismatic modern day vamp we are used to seeing from the Buffy show. Moving on to our third oldest vampire, we have, who I'd rate as pretty underrated, Lilith. She appeared in multiple franchises such as True Blood, you know, that naked woman who walks around covered in blood, and also 30 Days of Night, Dark Days, where she's the antagonist of that very disappointing sequel. Lilith is believed to be the first vampire in existence and thought to be at least 11,000 years old. She's basically the Akasha of True Blood, praised by her vampiric children and profited to one day return. She's more ruthless and cunning in 30 Days, responsible for the vampires returning to Barrow, and is in a very high position of authority. Her ancient blood makes her near unstoppable, and I say near because, as with most extremely powerful antagonists, there's always a loophole to bring upon their death, and Lilith is no different. I'll also be making a video on Lilith pretty soon, so look out for that when it drops. For number 2, guys, I've got to continue the honesty on this video, because for the passion I have for all things vampires, not once have I ever played or looked into Vampire the Masquerade. I'm sorry, I know many of you are massive fans, but I just really never got around to it until I properly researched this list and found the Antediluvians. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. The Antediluvians created each of the 13 clans of the Masquerade, so you know, kind of a big deal here. And so is their age, with the ancient vampires being over 12,000 years old. These guys are incredibly powerful, like a different level kind of strong. They can shape reality, control minds, and are far stronger than the modern vampires that descended from them. They have lived for so long that they also go through a period of long rest or deep sleep, whatever way you want to look at it, waking only when they see fit to influence the world. I would not be messing around with these guys if I was in that game, and you can believe that. So guys, in at number 1, we are sticking with Vampire the Masquerade, and of course, you already know it's gonna be Kane that takes the top spot, the first of his kind and the oldest vampire in existence at 14,000 years old. Kane's existence is heavily taken from biblical texts, but in the World of Darkness universe, his punishment for killing his brother Abel was to be turned into a vampire. So, the vampire strain begins with him. Now, Kane is literally the ultimate of ultimates in terms of how powerful he is as a vampire. Not only does he top the list due to his age, but he also would take top spot if we were looking at power alone. He can control minds at will. He's impervious to almost all forms of harm. There is nobody faster than him. He can use blood magic to manipulate reality and also has prophetic visions, which allows him to see the outcome of certain events before they happen. Kane is the top dog. So guys, with that being said, that is my list on the 10 oldest vampires to ever exist. If there's any vampires that I may have left out, then please make sure to comment that vampire and their age down below. Thanks for watching, and why not check out my video on the life of Akasha? Click either card and continue your journey with vampire folklore.